floor to the ambassador for a couple of minutes. Then we will have a short movie and a couple of questions. Then we will move on with the rest of the panel this afternoon. Thank you again very much, and thank you, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you for a wonderful introduction. A very good afternoon to you all, dear participants, dear guests of Change Now Summit. First of all, I would like to express our gratitude and appreciation for the wonderful opportunity to an excellent platform to discuss the most challenging problems around the world and together find innovative solutions to them. Let me put on the slide. Well, as it's obvious from the introduction, today I would like to attract your attention to the Aral Sea disaster, which is a large-scale, unprecedented economic environmental crisis, caused by poor water management and excessive irrigation policies carried out by the former Soviet Union. And I would like to briefly outline what are the measures taken by the current government of Uzbekistan in order to address this issue, which we unfortunately inherited from the Soviet Union. Okay. There's a lonely penguin on the picture. Why is he here? Perhaps he would like to warm up under the bright sun of Uzbekistan. Unfortunately not. According to the scientists, toxic substances from the Aral Sea were found in Antarctica penguins' blood, despite these birds live thousands of kilometers away from the Aral Sea. The magnitude and impact of the Aral Sea problem on the environment is so huge that it spreads far beyond the region and potentially can harm the environment and in the whole of the planet. For instance, it's a proven fact that, as already mentioned in case of the penguin, that the toxic pesticides, salt and sand is carried from the dried seabed by high winds thousands of kilometers away from the region. As you can see from the current slide, the remains of the Aral Sea are less nowadays than 10% of its 1960s level. What is left is distributed mostly equally between three reservoirs, which is the Western Sea, with an area of more than 2,000 square kilometers, Eastern Sea, with an area of 1.2 thousand square kilometers, and small northern part of Aral, with an area of 3,000 square kilometers. In general, the volume of the Aral Sea has decreased by 15 times. In other simple words, in a matter of one generation, we had a whole sea dried up. Isn't it a disaster? Well, due to fast and large-scale process of evaporation over the past 50 years, a new desert called Aralkum has appeared on the seabed of the old Aral Sea, and like any other desert on Earth, it has very inhospitable environment, very harsh climate, and first of all, it's absolutely lack of facilities and infrastructure for the normal human condition, normal human life. And it is driving the whole region into depression and forcing the population, which prosperously lived in Aral Sea region for many years, to leave the region as a whole. Global climate change poses another additional threats and challenges to the region and can potentially aggravate the economic, health and environmental conditions unless tackled systematically with comprehensive and large-scale measures. Nowadays, due to this environmental disaster, Uzbekistan territory, there's large, vast territories of Uzbekistan as well as our neighboring countries are classified as drought zones, susceptible to land degradation, to soil degradation, and to desertification. Recent steep increase in the intensity and frequency of droughts, sand and salt storms, and other natural phenomena are already becoming statistically so significant that it's leading to overwhelming increase in health risk and declining agricultural yields. Okay, I'll come back. well, naturally, a lot has been done by the regional countries to mitigate the effects of the Aral Sea disaster, for instance, under the auspices of International Fund for Saving the Aral Sea, which is called IFS. 3 important programs of the Aral Sea Basin were worked out. Many national and international projects were implemented, but they all lacked coherent regional approach and were aimed at some specific projects and problems in the region. So unfortunately, as it appears, all these measures carried out over the past 25 years are not sufficient enough. In this regard, taking into account all these previous mistakes and challenges, the government of Uzbekistan has declared recently 2 major initiatives. First is the creation of, as you can see on the slide, of multi-partner human security trust fund for the Aral Sea region under the auspices and agencies of United Nations. This initiative followed the address of our president at the 72nd session of the United Nations General Assembly. You will see later on in the video. And second is a declaration of the Aral Sea region as a zone of ecological innovations and technologies. Okay, the next slide, please. Well, I would like to briefly outline major objectives and scope of the fund. In short, the fund's aim is to address the consequences of one of the world's biggest man-made disaster through achieving the following outcomes. As you can see on the picture, it's prevent environment from further deterioration and its impact on local communities, create employment, of course, opportunities for local population, provide access to healthy nutrition and drinking water, provide medical services and promote healthy lifestyles, and improve, of course, the livelihoods of local population, especially women, children, and youth. The next slide, please. This is the organizational chart of the fund. I think it's not quite interesting to go into much detail. Maybe the next slide. It's very important to mention that all governments of Central Asia are united on the Aral Sea disaster and try to tackle it with comprehensive measures together, which of course gives us hope for a better future and gives us impetus to move further. The summit of heads of founders of International Fund for Saving the Aral Sea, which was held in 2018 in Turkmenistan, again proved that the environmental issues are back on the top of agenda of all our countries. And in this regard, I would like again to mention that this platform, the summit in Turkmenistan, was used to promote the initiative which I already mentioned by naming the Aral Sea as the Ecological Innovations and Technology Zone. The next slide, please. Well, the overall principles of the concept, you can see from the picture, it's of course to have institutional innovations such as public-private partnership, decentralization of state participation in addressing environmental problems, and more active involvement of the civil society. The second is technological innovation, which is a production basically of an introduction of green technologies, maximum efficient use of waste, introduction of sustainable production processes to reduce an adverse impact on the environment and so forth. And then we have economic and financial, of course, innovations. It's again zero waste, regenerative and efficient economy, introduction of new tariffs, financial support like revolving funds, microfinancing, and so forth. The next pillar is I'll come back if you. The next pillar is policy and legal innovation to lay a legal framework for all these processes. Next slide, please. The initiative, as I already mentioned, have several strategic priorities. It's to create a regulatory framework for ecological innovation and technology zone. Then the creation of innovative, again, I'll repeat myself, financial systems. Creation of permanent scientific platform, and it's very interesting. We will call it Aral Sea Observatory. And of course, we need to build up, to have a capacity building and human resources in this region. And very important is to create a comprehensive online platform, of course, because it will help to online interaction with the interested parties. I don't want to go in much detail, but of course the presentation will be available online, and if you are interested, we can share it with you. It's crucial to determine priority directions for innovation in this regard. It's important to introduce integrated water resource management, transfer to green economy, develop renewable energy, and so forth, and the role of ecosystems, new ecosystems which have been created in the Aral Sea. You know these projects, you visited the region, and if I may to explain to the audience, on the seabed of the Aral Sea, our government has a vast project of planting drought-resistant and salt-resistant trees and shrubs that can survive, and then, step by step, the new environment will be created. And it's already a proven effective mechanism and efficient mechanism. The overall project is to plant more than 2.5 million square hectares. We already done almost a quarter of it, and it's a very challenging task, I would say. And we hope that this is the way forward, and we continue on with our own means and with the help of this trust fund. And to conclude, I would say that this trust fund under the auspices of the United Nations proven to be an effective mechanism. It helps us to attract more resources and to raise the profile of the problem of the Aral Sea to the next level, to the United Nations, to the international arena. And again, today's platform is also a very good opportunity to shout out loud for this problem. And this is basically it. And I think if we have a short movie, and
yeah, I think we can just have an illustration of what you have just described institutionally with the short movie. Can we have the movie?
For 1,000 years, the Silk Road passed through what is now Uzbekistan and along the shores of a massive inland sea, the Aral Sea.
At one time, the Aral Sea was the 4th largest lake in the world and covered almost 70,000 square kilometers, providing life and livelihood to the millions of people in the region. Then, in the 1950s, the Soviet government massively diverted water from the 2 rivers feeding the lake, attempting to grow cotton in the arid lands of Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. Exploitation of the water at the expense of the sea was obvious to the world, but no one could stop it. By 1996, the Aral Sea had shrunk in size by 50%. Today, the Aral Sea is only 10% of its original size.
Комментарии здесь излишни. Преодоление последствий высыхания моря требует сегодня активной консолидации международных усилий.
Everyone saw what was happening, but no one could stop it. And now we see the cost of that inaction and the toll on the land and its people. The sea is gone, the people are not. Now we live in the Aral Desert, a desert with sand poisoned by a high concentration of salt, pesticides, and fertilizers. These are the tragic consequences that affect the health of our people in their ability to live in the region. But these are not only our problems. Every year, the wind carries 100 million tons of this toxic dust as far as the cities of Europe, the glaciers of Greenland, the forests of Norway, and even Antarctica. But the center of this crisis is the Aral Sea region. In May 2018, A suffocating sand and salt storm blew for days. The toxins were dangerous not only for the population and animals, but also for their crops and grazing lands.
To support local communities, international donors and the United Nations agencies joined the government of Uzbekistan to bring relief to the 3.5 million people affected by the crisis. Today, there are dozens of programs in the Aral region trying to make the land viable again for its people.
But these projects operate independently, with only limited coordination between them. Think what we could do together. Now, the government of Uzbekistan and the United Nations have found the way toward better cooperation and efficiency.
The Multi-Partner Trust Fund for Human Security in the Aral Sea region is a single platform, single strategy fund for breakthrough, people-centered development. Guided by the Sustainable Development Goals and the Human Security Approach, as well as capitalizing on success and lessons learned from the two programs funded by the UN Trust Fund for Human Security, the Trust Fund consolidates donor assistance to the Aral Sea region. There are already more than 100 multi-partner trust funds throughout the world. Their success depends on the support of donors worldwide. In 2018, the Aral region was proposed as an innovation and technology zone by the government of Uzbekistan to search for new approaches to old problems.
Working together, we can turn this ecological disaster into ecological innovation, piloting projects that can be adapted to other climate disasters around the globe. Let's be smart. As the Karakalpak proverb says, the strong man wins once, the clever man wins often. The sea may be gone, but the people, their hopes and dreams are here to stay.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. I think it gives a good outline of how deep the disaster is and how strong the initiative is. I will have just one question for you before we go on with the rest of the conversation today about biodiversity conservation. My question would be, how would you see the situation of the Aral Sea in 10 years or in 20 years from now? And what would you need to reach to this complete transformation in a few words?
Well, I'm not a Nostradamus to predict, first of all, but of course it's very challenging. We know that it's a first step, but it's a very important step. It's very difficult to predict how the environment will react, of course, but there are models already being done, and it's very challenging would be to, of course, preserve the Aral Sea to in its previous glory, I would say. The water is not there. We have a melting glaciers, and we are sure that we cannot retain the water levels on the previous levels. But what we can do is to have these 3 separate reservoirs. At least the project is like that, to sustain them somehow and to have a local communities around them. And this new initiative of innovation zone will help us to move further to recreate the livelihoods of local population, and of course we think we're looking optimistic for the future, and with the support of the United Nations, of international arena, I think we have a good chances to progress.
And maybe also through cooperations.
Absolutely. Cooperation is the key. Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much. I think we can thank Mr. Rustambaev.